3 years. That's how long it had been since the Navy told me my husband, Petty Officer Lucas Hayes, died in a training accident. 3 years since they knocked on my door with straight faces, folded a flag in front of me, shook my hand like it was a business transaction, and said, "We're sorry for your loss." 3 years since they walked away, and never came back. No follow-up. No official explanation. No apologies. Just a single sentence they expected me to swallow as the whole truth. After the funeral, the silence hit harder than the news. No more calls from his team. No more updates. No more anything. It felt like Lucas had disappeared twice, once from the world, and once from the story the Navy didn't want to tell. And I was the only one left holding the empty space where my life used to be. The silence that became my routine. People like to say time heals everything. They never mention that silence can wound just as deeply. 3 years of waking up alone. 3 years of cooking dinner for one. 3 years of folding laundry that never smelled like him again. There were days I couldn't breathe. Days I hated the world. And days I convinced myself that maybe it was better not to know what really happened. Because deep down, I always felt the report wasn't real. Lucas was too experienced, too sharp, too cautious to die in some generic, training accident. It sounded like a cover story the Navy copy-pasted when they didn't want to explain something. But every time I thought about demanding answers, I remembered the empty casket they lowered into the ground, and I backed away. What if the truth hurt worse than the lie? The package on my porch. It was a Tuesday morning when everything changed. I remember because Tuesdays were Lucas' favorite day, the forgotten day, he called it. A day where nothing big happens, which means anything can. That day, something did. When I opened the front door, a brown package sat on my porch. No return address. No tracking label. Just one printed line. Navy, personal effects. My legs almost gave out. The Navy hadn't sent me anything in 3 years. Why now? And why this? I carried the box inside like it might explode and placed it on the kitchen table. I stared at it for a full minute, then finally cut the tape. Inside was a single metal tin. Black. Scorched. Edges warped like it had been half melted. My heart was pounding so loud I could feel it in my throat. I opened the tin. Inside was Lucas' wedding ring. The same ring he promised never to take off, burned on one side, blackened like it had survived a fire instead of the ocean. I covered my mouth to stop myself from screaming. Then I saw the note. Just 2 handwritten words. Find out. That was it. No signature. No explanation. No clue who sent it. Just a burned ring and a command that felt like a threat and a plea at the same time. The ring didn't match the story. The official report said Lucas drowned during a nighttime training exercise. But this ring? It didn't come from water. The metal was scorched, not corroded. Burned, not deteriorated. Warped, not rusted. Who burns metal underwater? I placed the ring on the table and stared at it like it held every answer I'd been denied for 3 years. Something wasn't right. Something big. And someone, whoever sent the package, wanted me to know. The silence I had lived with suddenly felt loud. Too loud. Loud enough to choke on. Calling the only person left. There was one person who might know the truth. Chief Warrant Officer Marcus Reed, Lucas' closest friend on the team. But the moment Lucas died, Reed vanished. No calls. No messages. Not even a goodbye to Emma, his own wife. He ghosted everyone. Which, at the time, felt cruel. Now, it felt suspicious. So I called Emma. She picked up on the first ring. Avery? It's been a while. Are you okay? No, I said. Can I come over? There was a pause. A long one. Yes. Come. Emma's face told me everything. The moment she opened her door and saw the tin in my hand, her entire body stiffened. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't ask why I was there. She just whispered. "Where did you get that?" "The Navy sent it this morning." She closed her eyes like she already knew what that meant. Then she locked the door, all 3 locks, and motioned for me to sit. "My husband told me this day might come," she said quietly. My heart dropped to my stomach. "What day?" "Emma, what's going on?" She sat across from me, voice shaking. "Marcus told me that if you ever got anything of Lucas after the funeral, anything at all, it meant the truth didn't stay buried." I inhaled sharply. "What truth?" She swallowed. "The training accident wasn't an accident." That sentence alone changed the temperature in the room. The air heavy. The silence dangerous. "He didn't drown, Avery," she continued slowly. "He died on a classified recovery mission." My heart stopped. "What mission?" "I don't know. No one was allowed to talk about it. Marcus said people higher up shut everything down." My fingertips went numb. "And the ring?" I whispered. She touched the burned metal gently. "This wasn't pulled from the ocean. This was pulled from a blast." Blast. Explosion. Fire. Not waves. Not water. Not training. A cover story. A lie. A rewritten version of the truth. Emma's voice lowered. "Whoever sent this, they want you to finish what Lucas couldn't." My throat closed. "And what was that?" She looked straight at me with eyes full of pain. "Finding out the truth about what really happened to him." The silence finally broke. For 3 years, I lived inside a lie. Now I held the evidence in my hands, a burned ring with a message that didn't feel like closure. It felt like a beginning. For the first time since the Navy showed up at my door, I wasn't drowning in silence. I was drowning in truth. Painful truth. Terrifying truth. Truth someone risked everything to send me. And I knew exactly what I had to do next. I whispered into the scorched metal, like Lucas might still be listening. "I'll find out. I promise." Because the man I loved didn't deserve silence. He deserved justice. And I was finally ready to break the walls that kept me in the dark. The ring sat inside that box like it still belonged to him, like it still remembered the skin it once touched. I couldn't breathe. It wasn't just burned. It was warped, like someone had pressed it against something scorching hot, or like it had been ripped off in a moment no one wanted to describe. I held it with shaking fingers. Cold. Dead metal. Nothing like him. Nothing like the warm hand that used to hold mine when we crossed the street at night because he said, "Cars can't see well after rain, come here." He always noticed things. He always protected people before they even realized they needed it. And now this, the Navy telling me nothing for 3 years, then giving me his ring as if to say, "Here. This is all that's left of the man you loved." But it wasn't enough. Not this time. Not anymore. The officer who wouldn't meet my eyes. I drove straight to the nearest base. I didn't call. I didn't text. I didn't ask permission. I walked into that office with the ring in my palm like a wound I wanted them to look at. The duty officer saw me and froze. "Ma'am, Mrs. Hale. I want answers." His throat bobbed. "We've already provided the official." I slammed the ring on the desk. It made a sharp metallic clack that echoed across the room. "Explain why this looks like it was burned off his hand." He stared at the ring. Not me. The ring. Like even speaking about it might get him written up. "We're not authorized to." "Then get someone who is." He hesitated just a bit too long. That told me everything. Somebody knew. Somebody had always known. And they hoped I'd moved on. They hoped 3 years would be enough to make me forget. The commander who finally opened his mouth. They sent a man I'd never seen before. Commander Riley. Sharp jaw. Eyes like he hadn't slept a full night since last Christmas. He closed the office door behind him. Mrs. Hale, you weren't supposed to receive that. That one sentence nearly knocked the breath out of me. Really? Which part? The burned ring, or the 3 years of silence? He sighed. A long one. Like he'd been carrying this truth around for so long that finally speaking it might break him. There was an incident. You mean the one you called an equipment malfunction? His jaw flexed. That was the only version we were authorized to release. And the real version? He looked away. That was his mistake. That's when I finally understood. This wasn't just a cover-up. This was a buried body kind of secret. Your husband, he said slowly, didn't die the way the report said. I gripped the chair. My pulse was loud enough to drown out his voice. He died protecting his team from something he shouldn't have been anywhere near. What was it? He hesitated again. Classified. I laughed. Small, humorless. That word killed him, didn't it? Riley didn't deny it. He didn't have to. The truth they never wanted me to see. He slid a folder across the table. No name on it. Just a red stamp, restricted. This is not leaving this room, Riley said. When I opened it, my stomach turned. Photos. Reports. Debrief notes. All describing one thing. A fire. Not an accident. Not equipment failure. A deliberate ignition. Someone said it. Someone inside their own unit. The ring. It wasn't lost in combat. It was ripped from my husband's hand when he tried to pull another Marine out of a burning room. Someone locked them in. My husband forced the door open just long enough to shove the other Marine out. But the flames caught him. And the ring melted against his skin. That's why it was warped. That's why it was blackened. That's why they never told me. Because it wasn't heroism they wanted to hide. It was betrayal. An internal investigation had been pending for 3 years. Pending. While I grieved alone. While I waited like a fool for a phone call that never came. While his ring sat in a vault because someone didn't want me to see what actually killed him. When I finally looked up at Riley, he said nothing. He didn't need to. The truth was already sitting in my lap, burning through me hotter than the fire that took him. The reckoning. What happened to the man who set the fire? I asked. Awaiting trial. 3 years later? He swallowed. They had to be sure. Sure of what? That he acted alone. A chill went down my spine. So there were others. Silence. I leaned forward. If my husband can run into a burning room to save someone, I can walk into a courtroom and burn every lie you people ever told. Riley's eyes softened. Mrs. Hale, he died a hero. That part was never a lie. But I shook my head. He died thinking someone on his own team wanted him dead. That's the part you hid. And that's when Riley said softly. That's why I sent the ring. I froze. You sent it? Yes. I couldn't let it sit in a box any longer. It was wrong. So he had gone against orders. For me. For my husband. I didn't thank him. I couldn't. Not yet. But for the first time in 3 years. I felt something other than grief. I felt purpose. Closure, the ring that meant more than marriage. That night, I cleaned the ring. Gently. Slowly. Every darkened crease, every warped edge. I traced all of it with my thumb. It was the ugliest thing I'd ever held. And the most beautiful. Because it wasn't just a reminder of how he died. It was proof of how he lived. Brave. Selfless. running toward fire when others ran away. The Navy tried to give me silence. But he gave me truth. And I wasn't going to let it stay buried anymore. Tomorrow, I would testify. Tomorrow, I would name names. Tomorrow, the lies that killed him would finally face light. But tonight, I slipped the burned ring onto a chain around my neck. It rested over my heart, still warm from my hands. "Don't worry," I whispered. "I'll finish what they didn't." And for the first time since the day they told me he was gone, I felt like he heard me.